There's a smell from the view out the window. Your lipstick's a clean from your toothpaste. Spend time counting marks on your fingers. Let's lay here and waste that time. I'm gonna love you like crazy. Waste that time. Waste that time. Let's lay here and waste that time. I'm gonna love you like crazy. Waste that time. Let's lay here and waste that time. We have breakfast in bed. Pour the coffee and kiss me. We are both skipping work. Oh, there's a bird singing loud in the palm trees. On the beach laying next to your building. And the ocean is singing even louder. Let's lay here and waste that time. I'm gonna love you like crazy. Waste that time. Let's lay here and waste that time.
What's going on, everybody? This is your man, Lionel, also known as Chaplain Bailey, friend to many, confidant to a very few. And I am super duper excited that you decided to join us for this conversation we're about to have with our special guest today. But before we do that, I want you to do me a favor. If you're watching on YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, whatever it may be, please feel free to make a comment, engage us as we are engaging this conversation. Don't be afraid to ask questions. We'll respond. As well as hit that subscribe button, because when you subscribe, you support us and you help us to continue doing what we do best, which is bring you conversations that are life-changing. That's why we call it Words for Change. So while we are waiting for our guests to come in, I want you to go ahead on and grab your favorite cup of coffee, because I have mine, whatever your favorite bev may be, and we're going to come back on the other side. It's going to be good. Great conversation. Let's make it happen. Hey, good morning. This is Chaplain Bailey. Well, we're back. We are back. And I am excited to have a special guest with us today, Miss Robin Burch. How you doing, Robin?
I'm good. How are you?
I am doing wonderful. Man, I'm telling you, I love that song. Sometimes I wonder, the song we were dancing to, sometimes I wonder, if people are going to like this song or whatever. But you know what? I'm like, I don't even care. I like the song, so I'm going to dance to it. Did you like the gig?
I did. I was like, I need to Shazam this song, but I have my headphones in.
Oh, yeah. So, hey, I am like super pumped for this conversation and all the possibilities, not only for me personally to learn from you, but also for our guests. People are listening here on, all the major podcast platforms as well as on YouTube. And so I'm excited about all that is about to go down because I know it's going to make a difference in somebody's life in a positive way, which is I know what you do as well. So, hey guys, this is Robin Burch. I'm sorry, Rachel Burch. Sorry, Rachel.
Okay.
Who is a lawyer turned coach, transformational coach, as well as the owner of LoveBefore100 Podcast. And she's done podcasts before, so she is not new to the podcast game. She is a pro at this, hailing from the West Coast. So everybody, why don't you just, come on in and give, let's see if I can find I can't ever find give Rachel a hand. There we go. That's what I was looking for right there.
Thank you.
Okay, so Rachel, will you please tell us a little bit? Actually, you know what? Before you do that, because we are live streaming, I got a game for you.
Okay. I'm ready.
All right, you ready?
Yeah.
Okay. What's your favorite color?
Currently pink.
Pink. Okay. All right. What's your favorite state and what's your favorite state?
Besides California, Colorado.
Colorado. Oh, I had another guest who said the same thing. Colorado. Okay. Susan Gold said Colorado. So what's your favorite meal?
My favorite meal, sushi.
Sushi. Okay. All right.
Well, and osobuco. Osobuco like my grandma used to make, but
Osobuco.
if that's not available, I'll go for sushi. Yeah.
Cool. Awesome. So what's your favorite movie? Let me guess.
Guess.
It has something to do with being a lawyer.
No.
Oh.
I'm a huge rom-com. Like rom-coms are my favorite. Hallmark movies, but I wouldn't pick a Hallmark movie as my favorite, but I would say maybe like Love Actually.
Oh, that's a great one. One. What was that other one with? Was that the one with him and Julia Roberts?
No, that's
what was that?
Notting Hill.
Notting Hill.
Yeah.
That's a great. I love Notting Hill. Great. Okay.
Me too.
That's a great movie. Okay. What if you could change one thing in the world, what would it be?
So, I've always said loneliness, actually, the feeling of loneliness that so many people, married, single, throupled, whatever your current situation, you could have hundreds of people around you and still feel lonely. And I feel like if I could let people know that they're not alone, that would be what I would change. I think it would have such an amazing ripple effect on the rest of the world too.
Right. Awesome. Well, hey, great meeting you for the first time. Great, getting to know you. So we want to kind of delve into this conversation a little bit more and tell everybody, how did you get to the place where you are right now, right? Like, so you do comedy, right?
Yeah, stand-up comedy, I do.
You do stand-up. Oh boy, so you're sharp. I love comedy. Who's your favorite comic?
Bill Burr.
But you know who I tell you my favorite in this order. I would say number one would probably be David Chappelle.
Okay.
Number 2 would definitely be Jim Gaffigan.
Oh, that's my name.
Jim Gaffigan is hilarious. So shout out to Jim Gaffigan. Not that he would, but anyway.
He's listening.
And then probably number 3 will be D.L. Hughley. Strangely enough. D.L. Hughley. He is hilarious. And he's very intelligent. Most comics are very intelligent. Anyway, they just have a great way of turning all of the, life experience into satire. So, and they do it seamlessly. Right. So, anywho, so tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay. So I, as you said, was an attorney. Then I became a life and business coach for a while and have kind of started to learn to follow God and the universe's path for me. I'm a doer. I like to make things happen. And I, on this path, have learned very recently, it took, 47 years to get to the point where now I understand that if I just not sit back and do nothing, but I do my part, but I don't try to control everything, things are going to turn out really, really good. So much better than whatever my kind of plan is for myself. And that was the thing. I grew up, I always joke that I was brainwashed by my dad in Matlock to become an attorney. I just watched all the episodes and with my dad while he was getting ready for work because he was also an attorney. And, always knew I'm going to be an attorney. And then finally make it past the bar. My first year, I'm in this high rise in downtown LA. And I realize I hate this. This isn't what Matlock did. Matlock didn't sit at his desk going through, emails for discovery responses. He was out there, solving problems and interacting with people and making a difference. But it took me 10 years to finally leave the law because we have these expectations. I didn't want to disappoint my dad. I spent all this money on law school, so I should stay a lawyer, and it wasn't until my older son came along and he had some developmental delays that I had a good enough reason to leave the law, right? My pain, my anxiety. I went to the emergency room twice having panic attacks because I did business litigation and then I was general counsel. So I was the head of legal for this very large corporation. And it was so stressful, but I couldn't leave until I had my son that I needed to care for. So, I mean, air quotes, couldn't leave, right? I didn't want to let anyone down or disappoint anyone or make the wrong choice.
Right.
And so eventually I did, and I got into coaching and the world of personal development. And now I'm like a growth addict. It's just kind of like anything I can turn into growth, anything I can frame in a growth mindset. That's what I'm going to do. Stand-up comedy didn't start that way, but it's evolved that way. I work with a coach. He's a spiritual kind of, I call him a spiritual guru. He probably doesn't like that terminology, but spiritual guru. He used to be a comedian, big time comedian. And he said the only way to get better is to be okay with bombing. So recently I did a performance where I just fully prepared to bomb. I didn't go up there with my best stuff. It was so awful and awkward, but I did it. And it, got me over the thing I feared the most, which was bombing. And now I'm like, oh, I don't care. I've done that now.
Right. So I wonder, how does it feel like going from being a person who is reading legal documents or writing legal documents and reading cases and going through word by word, line by line, word by word, principle by principle, and all the above, to being a comic? That's a big jump, right?
Yeah, it is actually. People used to ask me when I was an attorney, what do you do for fun? What are your hobbies? And I'd say, I'm an attorney. I don't have time for fun. Like that just doesn't. So to actually find a way to do something fully for myself that just felt so like indulgent. That's what comedy kind of was, indulgent. it felt really exciting. The other thing was, so I was voted best sense of humor in high school,
Mm,
and I was shocked by that. I didn't really know that other people found me funny. And when I signed up for this class that I ended up doing my first performance with, I would write this material, kind of like you were talking about how you can take life and kind of make it funny. And in the class, nobody would laugh. They'd kind of just stare at me, and I go, I know I'm funny. I just, nobody's really getting it. And
right.
then at the performance, I had so many people come up and say, it went so well. And I had so many people come up and say, I can't believe this is your first time. I had a woman want to take a picture with me because she said, for when you're famous. Like, it was this validation, which I know we don't strive for outside validation, but it was kind of nice to have evidence as
Right.
an attorney that, like, oh yeah, I can do this. I am
Mm.
funny. I mean, with comedy, it's not funny unless other people find it funny.
That's right.
So, you
Unless
know,
people are laughing. That's right.
yeah,
That's the whole point.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that it was kind of a very rewarding, interesting experience to that first time out.
So, part of what you also talk about is your journey
Mm.
as a skeptic, right? So, what is that all about? Like, help us understand, like, what was the skepticism, however that may be sound for you. Oftentimes, when people talk to, I'm a minister, which you figured that out already. But some people get freaked out by the title and all of that, and I'm like, I don't know why. I'm just a normal person. And that's just kind of it's a title, but it's not who I am. It's what I do that is intertwined with who I am, but more so, I'm a person.
Yeah.
And so when people say things like, when I interview people and they say things like skepticism, or I didn't believe, or I didn't have faith, they have a tendency to think I'm going to become combative in some way, shape, or form, which I have no desire to be, not unless that's like the angle that we're going with. So what was skepticism? I'm interested in knowing, like, what was skepticism for you, and what led you, or what circumstances caused that feeling or reaction in life toward maybe faith or some form of faith or church or what have you?
Yeah. So, when I was 12, my 6-year-old brother died in front of me. He had an accident. He choked on a little
Wow.
bouncy ball, one of those like super bouncy balls,
Mm,
those little rubber ones. And obviously, my family was not the same after that. In addition, my grandparents on my mom's side were Holocaust survivors. So,
mm,
my grandfather had a wife and a 1-year-old baby that were killed.
mm,
Their families were killed. And my grandparents actually met in the forest because they escaped through the sewer systems in Poland, and that's where they met. So,
mm,
growing up with all this tragedy and death, you get to a place where not only the people that are raising you, because they've gone through this, but also yourself think, where's God? Like,
right.
if there's this God, like, where was he through all this kind of stuff? And so that's kind of how it started. Just, where's God? How can I reconcile the fact that there's all this tragedy and
Mm,
all this hurt, and there's a God that's supposed to be looking out for us and loves us? Um, and I've heard that in different forms from people as well. Just kind of like, okay, well, if there's COVID or there's homelessness or there's, that was kind of the belief system. But as I've gone through life, and it's been a journey, it has
mm,
definitely been a journey. Um, I think the first thing that actually got me to open the door to this was the book The Secret.
mm,
And talking about having, instead of viewing things pessimistically, viewing them optimistically and watching kind of the law of attraction happen. So I used to joke, I'm a pessimist because either I'm right and the bad thing's going to happen, or I'm pleasantly surprised. It felt like a win-win to be a pessimist.
mm.
And I finally realized, no, that's not working for me. I think I'm going to become an optimist after reading The Secret. And just, one of my favorite mantras with my boys is everything's always working out for us. And I say that. My 7-year-old will say, we bought some lottery tickets. And he was like, well, everything's always working out for us. Like, how did we lose? Kind of. So I had to explain to him. I explained to him how somebody else needed to win more and how this puts us on the path for something else. And so at the end, he was like, oh, so by losing, it increases our chances of winning next time. And I was like, sure, basically, yeah, let's look at it that way. So I feel like if you can take every hard time and figure out why it might be a gift to you. So I've been doing that in my life. So now, instead of seeing the tragedy and missing the existence of God, I look for the presence of God in those kind of tragedies. And for a long time, the last couple of years, I've gotten signs, right? Like little, like kind of, I call them winks from the universe. You'll just like the presence of God. And so I kept trying to make it mean something. What's the significance? What's the sign mean? This is my soulmate, or I'm supposed to take this job. What does it mean? And I finally realized that it's just God saying, I'm here. I'm here. Like, I'm with you. And things do get hard. And I'm still here. And so instead of looking to God to be this like magical machine that solves all my problems or makes everything perfect, like what do they call them? Lawnmower parent. I'm a lawnmower parent. After losing my brother, I'm like, I joke that my kids only ate pureed foods forever because I'm like so petrified of choking, So it's like God is not a lawnmower parent. He's
Wait.
parent.
Hold on. God is not a lawnmower parent. You got to break that down for us, Rachel. What does that mean? By the way, before you say that, Joe with Flo says amen to your story. I don't know what part she said amen to, but she's liking what you're talking about. So thank you so much. Good to have you, Joe, always. So what is God is not a lawnmower? What does that mean?
I don't know. I prayed before this, God, if I'm supposed to say something, say it. So it must be that. But, I don't know if you know the term lawnmower parent, but it's a parent that just kind of mows down problems in front of their children, right? Like it just clears the path for them. So any struggle that they may grow from and learn from, which is kind of how I grew up, it's mowed down. So you don't have to go through that, which in my opinion is not doing anyone any favors.
Oh,
And
wow.
as I haven't said this before. It hasn't even occurred to me before. So thank you for having me on your show. But that's not God's job either. Just like a really loving parent that lets you go through struggles and figure it out so you can grow. That's what God has to do. And sometimes it doesn't make sense. Like the Holocaust, losing my brother, COVID, all these things, they don't make sense. But life doesn't make sense. So we got to get through it and grow through it.
Sounds like there's a lot of experiences that you've gone through that really shaped your perspective. You think that really causes the pessimism because of the tragedy you experience?
I think that I was definitely, I can hear the church bells ringing. That's a sign. That's a sign.
There you go.
Even going through my divorce, I could have looked at it as this is the end. And I did. I grieved it and I mourned it. But I think you have a choice with your mindset. Tragedy is going to happen to everybody. I'm not special in that way that like these things happened. Everybody has things that impacted them in this way. It wasn't modeled for me. And I don't say that in a judgmental way of my parents at all, because again, like one of them was a child of Holocaust survivors and was kind of this like almost replacement child that happened after he lost his first child. So there's no judgment in that because we all have our struggles. But I really try to instill this in my boys because if you can learn it at any age, it's going to help you.
Right. So, wow. So parents experience, Holocaust, you had some history with that, lost your brother at an early age. I mean, I can totally understand if people listening, why why a person could possibly move in toward that pessimistic kind of way of seeing things because of the tragedy. And what, I think if people who are listening should think about how what can they learn from those experiences, right? Which is what you said a moment ago. I totally agree with you, and I think Flo Joe did as well. She said God is not a lawnmower parent. She agrees with you, and I do as well. As a parent of teenage daughters, one's about to go to college, also as a grandparent, right? Wanting to not erase the hardship from my kids, right? Like, you need to, bro, like tell my son who's 10, I'm like, hey, bud, you need to learn what it's like to have to take care of someone else. Like, and instead of just thinking about yourself, right? So, so how did you transition what was the transition to faith? Because you talk about that skepticism, and I know a lot of people live in that space. You know that too as a coach.
Yeah.
But how did you begin making that transition?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely took time. It took a lot of time because I was really entrenched in the skepticism. As I said, it was a protection mechanism. It was, things are going to be as I expect them to. It was a form of control. Things are going to be as I expect them to be or better. So I'm just going to be skeptical. Don't sell me anything.
Why control? I'm sorry, that
Control?
caught my attention. Controlled. You said it was a form of control. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a form of controlling your disappointments, because if you have faith, you could be disappointed. You probably will be disappointed.
Wow. Controlling your disappointments?
Yeah. Or attempting to control your disappointments. You're going to be really disappointed if you don't have, some faith.
Right. So did that push, how did that work out? Did that push you further into skepticism, or did you realize that it wasn't helping as you begin making that transition? Right.
I had to really get to the other side to look back and appreciate. I didn't think I could, as a skeptic, as like a card carrying skeptic, I didn't think I could get there. And I didn't think I wanted to get there because I thought those people were crazy. I remember I was so afraid of death for the longest time, especially after my brother. And I had a boss that was Mormon, and he explained to me the belief that you're kind of sealed together with your family and you go to the afterlife. And I was like, that must be amazing to have that as like a belief in your body. Then you're like, meh, I don't care if I die because I'm going to be with them. Like, I'm still going to be with them. And so I really did see the power of belief in the sense of, if I believe the right things, it's going to make my life a lot easier. It's going to make my life, instead of being like, you're a fool, right? My biggest fear, a lot of people's fear is, you're going to be a fool. You're going to look like a fool because you believe in Santa Claus or the Tooth Fairy or God, or, you know what I mean? True love. This person's not going to hurt me. I'm going to look like a fool. And so I had to go, you know what? I'm okay with looking like a fool, because I'd rather walk through life just feeling the joy that I can see this man obviously has with his faith. And so it was kind of this shift in perspective of, why do I not want to believe? What's preventing me? Control, fear, all that kind of stuff. And what would I get if I actually did believe? And I can say, being on this side of it, there's still a part of me that's like, are we sure? Are we sure this is like real? And then I'm like, oh, does it matter? Because my life is so good now in the belief system that there is a universe that cares about me, that wants me to grow, that wants me to have these lessons, that is gonna, ultimately keep me safe in the sense of like the eternal package, I guess, if you will. So has my best, highest good in mind. If I can like believe that, then I can get through all the hard times, and I have so far.
So I have a question in that line. What would you say to someone in a different environment in the world who's challenged to have that kind of belief because of the constant turmoil, whether that be inside of the home, because you know there are people listening who have some family backgrounds of abuse, perhaps extreme poverty. People like, how does that work out for you in your own mind, but also as you're coaching people, right? Because for everyone, believing and manifesting, doesn't work.
I know. I mean, that's the thing. There's a book, Viktor Frankl's book, the it's like
I
not
want
the
to pull it up.
happiest man. Yeah. So there, I mean, first of all, the empathy that I have in the sense of and compassion that's saying like I understand that it seems easy to say for somebody that's in a better situation, that's not in it currently. And that's why I kind of earlier was saying that like I'm not special. I don't say that losing my brother and all this kind of stuff is unique to me. Everybody has their own pains. And in the law, we have this thing called the thin skull plaintiff. And basically, it means you take the person as you see them. So if you hit somebody on the head lightly with like a, pen and it causes them damage because they have a thin skull, it's like that's, the I'm not giving legal advice or trying to make legal concepts here because I'm like
everybody,
butchering it.
She is not giving legal advice right now.
Don't sue
Let's
anyone
just make
and
that.
say you have a thin skull.
She's not giving legal advice.
But it's kind of like everybody reacts and can handle tragedy in their own way. And so first I would say, I mean, it sounds so, not condescending, but in the sense that like you're going through this, but you're surviving. You may not, feel proud of yourself. You may not feel like you're handling it the best. You may feel miserable, but like you're surviving and making it through day to day, whether it's going to a job that you hate because you know that you have to, get food on the table for your family, whether it's staying in a relationship that's really hard because you're scared to leave and you're not there yet where you've done it, when your circumstances are dire. I would say the first thing is to give yourself a little bit of credit and grace and a break, because it's easy to look outside and, be mad at the world when things aren't going well, but it always mirrors back inside what we're saying to ourselves. Our self-talk is going to be, this is very similar. It's going to be, I should be stronger, or I should be different, or like, I'm not good enough, or if I was this would be different. And a lot of times we express that outwardly as an anger towards our circumstances. And so the first step for that would be to go, you know what? Look in the mirror and go like, I'm pretty brave. I'm pretty strong. Like I can do hard things. That was something that I had to say to myself on a daily basis through my divorce. Like I can do hard things. Start with like the belief in yourself. And then once you believe in yourself, it's so much easier to believe in the universe and God and other people. And kind of, now, again, I'm not saying rose-colored glasses where there's not a bunch of jerks in the world that are taking advantage and doing all these terrible things. There definitely are. But for my purposes, I realized I'm not going to believe in that. Skepticism was hurting me. That was the main thing it was doing. It wasn't hurting anybody outside of me. It wasn't like, take that, I'm not going to believe in God because all of this kind of stuff. I was just hurting myself. And so when I really started to be my own cheerleader, that was kind of where I started from, that place. And I know that's hard. And I want so badly to have the right words to encourage someone that's hurting like that to trust. And it really is a internal journey of self-love and trust that blossoms into trusting the world and God
Yeah.
and everything.
Well, I think you said it perfectly, right? That there are people who are going through situations that we can't explain. Like there is no explanation for what. All we know is that there are good people in the world who should be trying to right those wrongs, right? But I think you said it perfectly when you said, it's a great point. You said the fact that you're alive and you're getting through it, you're going through it, is testament to strength, is testament to a lot of different things, right?
Yeah.
Because we are all a sum total of our environments. We are. And, you know, what I'm going through could be very different from what your experience is, Rachel. What someone else in South America is going through is very, very different from what someone in the United States may go through in our interpretation of the world. Our world is extremely complex and there's a lot of shades of gray. That's not a whole lot of black and white, right? But a lot of shades of gray. Okay, now I'm preaching now. but I wanna ask another question here. One of the things that you talk about is your podcast. Your podcast is Love Before 100. So talk about how your spirituality, like, how does this fit into everything? Yeah, because I've listened to some of the episodes, and man, the one with the I become a serial killer. I was like, oh my gosh. Tell everybody about that. That's a dope podcast, by the way. That episode was amazing. So, but tell everybody about your finding love, and y'all got to go check her out on TikTok. Her TikToks are great. So I could go on and on and on, but people don't want to hear from me. Let me shut my mouth. What?
Thank you. Well, and I want to say one last thing about what you were saying before, because when you were talking, it made me think. I heard this quote one time. I think it was a woman that had lost her baby, and she was talking to somebody else in another tragedy, and she said, kind of like the namaste concept. It was like, my misery, my sadness sees your misery and your sadness. So it's like, we're not in the same place. We don't have the same misery, but we're both experiencing it. We're both humans. Like, let's connect in that. And that goes back to my whole loneliness point of, if you don't feel so alone, nobody understands you. Nobody's going through what you're going through, but you can say that person's hurting in a similar way to me, a different way. It just cracks open your heart a little bit. And speaking of heart, that is what my podcast is about. I really founded it because I wanted, for a couple reasons, actually. And here's the spirituality piece. So I had a podcast called The Transformation Maven, and I had 67 episodes, and I had a great following, and I did a lot of stuff about transformation.
Hold on. Shout out to you. 67 episodes. For those of you who don't know about pod fade and all that, that's to you, Rachel.
Thank you. Thank you.
Sorry, I got my little antics. You know, I got all this stuff. I got to use it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No. So I had this podcast, and every so often I'd go on hiatus, and then I'd come back with a new season and kind of a rebranding. And so I was in this place where I was rebranding, and I was going to relaunch the Transformation Maven as the Rachel Burch Show. And I was going to start with, it was going to be all things transformation, again, just like the podcast had been. And I was going to start with like 1 or 2 episodes, about dating. I did not plan to have a dating pod. I share a lot of things. I'm very open, but I never shared about dating. It was just kind of like a private thing. I have 2 sons, and I didn't want to get into that. My ex-husband, I have so much like sympathy for him. I didn't want it to be like a gross thing. So I thought, well, I'll talk about dating for a minute. So long story short, I won't give you all the details, but just know that this was a walk that I took with God. I went on a walk, and I thought, I had a virtual assistant, and then I was doing my own editing. I need to call in another assistant to help me. And I went through this process with God. And when I got home, I decided I was going to look on the internet and see if I could find what people currently pay their podcasting editors.
Mm.
Not because I was looking for one on that site, but because I had a plan. I had a plan, but the universe had its own plan. So the third person that I found, the first one that I clicked on, I scrolled down, was a man that lived in my same city, but he was Australian. So that caught my attention. And I was like, oh, okay, I'm going to click on him. Turns out he was the former producer for the reality show, The Bachelor Australia.
Oh, wow.
So the reality show, yeah. So I thought, I'm doing a couple episodes about dating. This could be like the perfect person that the universe just dropped. So I scheduled a meeting with him and I told him all my ideas. And he said, look, I think you should go with the bucket list concept. That's very unique. Instead of, I had all this stuff and I just gave it all to him. And he was like, let's just focus on the bucket list. So the podcast became me trying to find love by going through my bucket list that I had created. I had created a bucket list.
Wow.
At the time, I created 2 bucket lists. One was to try to get my groove back after my divorce, right? Like I'm a doer. I'm a list maker.
Mm.
So I'm going to make a list of all the things I can do to try to get my groove back. All PG-13, nothing crazy. This is a family show.
Look.
Yeah, exactly. And then I met this man on the plane and totally fell for him. And it was sort of reciprocal, but not to the extent I wanted it to be. So I was like, I'm going to make a list of guys that I want to go out on dates with. This will take my attention away from focusing on him.
Mm.
So I was telling the producer about that, and we created this podcast where basically I go out and check things off my lists. And then I tell stories about it using personal development, using spirituality, using the comedy. I don't really use the law stuff, but everything that I've kind of gotten in this whole process, I use.
Right.
And I really feel like I was divinely guided to start the podcast, to my producer, to the topic. I have watched God show up with me. I'm kind of like, really? You care about my little podcast and putting content? But it's like the right person at the right time, that like everything along the road. And so I really share about that. And then the other piece that is to me so interesting is in personal development and in movies, there's the hero's journey. Are you familiar with the hero's journey?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. So I had taken a class for a 1-woman show. My podcast was going to be a 1-woman show, but I turned it into a podcast because I felt like that's a better use of my resources.
Right.
And great one woman or one man, one person shows will follow this hero's journey arc. People like to see the character development. So my podcast became for me the greatest form of personal development because not only was I writing the episodes and following the bucket list, but I was trying to actually grow on this character arc, like real time.
Right,
so it would kind of be like, it was teaching lessons. Yeah. So now.
So you were using it as a growth strategy.
Yeah.
Was it? Wow. That's genius.
Yeah. Thank you.
That's genius. What?
Yeah.
Man, you got me thinking like, oh, wow, okay. I'm taking notes. That's why I was like, oh. Yeah. Okay. So you were saying were you talking about the hero's journey still?
Yeah. Well, basically just now I will, it's funny because one of the other reasons I started the podcast was for accountability. I'm an introvert. I don't like dating. I don't like getting my heart broken. Who does? So I would rather just stay home. But I thought, okay, if I have to get a podcast episode, I have to put myself out there. I have to keep putting myself out there. And I love getting messages from people that are like, thank you. Like you inspire me. And so I go, okay, well, I have to keep doing this then. So
Isn't that the greatest thing though? When people, I got a message one time from a random person, like a voice message. Because the way my stuff is set up is you can also leave a voice message. If you go to chapstalk.org, you can leave a written or a voice message. Somebody left a voice message. And I was like, oh, and it came at the right time Because like I know, Rachel, sometimes this is hard work. It takes time and energy to put into it. And Joe, who's a podcaster as well, can tell you, it takes work. Yeah. And sometimes what the universe does and just drops those little things in front of you to say, you're making a difference. That's kind of what I heard you say as you're going through this hero's journey with the podcast.
Absolutely. I had one woman message me from Denmark that actually she found me because of the serial killer. My guest is a good friend of mine. People tell me I have to say it in reverse order. Otherwise it sounds like my friend is serial killer. She's an expert in serial killers. Like that's her job.
She's an expert in serial killers?
Yeah, like she has a couple TV shows. She has her own podcast. It's called How Not to Raise a Serial Killer. Wow. And it talks about parenting. Yeah, and she goes through different things. So I had her on my podcast as How Not to Date a Serial Killer. And we went through looking at profiles. And, she says if a man has a picture with his mother on his profile, that he's more likely to be a serial killer. Now I'm like, God, that guy was cute, but no.
That's so funny.
I know.
Oh my gosh, that's hilarious. I've never. Make sure I don't put a pin. That's just.
I know.
I'm sorry, that took me for a minute.
Yeah, no, it's very so she had me on her podcast, and then someone in Denmark found me and she messaged me, and then I said, I just said to her, I'm so grateful for your message, because you do hit these walls where you go, does this even matter? Is anyone even listening? Especially in the summer when your numbers, your downloads will start to tank and you go like, why am I doing this? And then I met this guy on a dating app like a year ago. I've never met him. He'll text me randomly and he'll send me music. And one day I was sitting around and I was thinking, why am I doing this podcast? And he sent me this song. I think it's called A Million Dreams. And when I read the lyrics, it said, it was about a man who writes songs. And it said, I labor for hours in the hope that my voice will cut through the noise and reach one person. And I thought, oh, that's what I'm doing. I labor for hours hoping that my voice will cut through the noise and hit one person. And when I got the message from her, I was just kind of like, okay, I hit one person, So you got to keep going. You got to keep going.
That's powerful, man. For you listeners, if you could, I'm sure you feel the energy from that statement, right? Yeah. People feel I know you guys feel the energy from that statement. Matter of fact, you should, what was the name of that song? Do you remember the name of the song?
It's,
or the quote, something. Yeah. That's, that's very encouraging for people who are listening.
Well, in anything you're doing,
in anything, you're right, Rachel, in anything you're doing. Right. And so, man, I just want to say, if you guys are listening, just go ahead on and pop a like down. Let us know that you appreciate this conversation. I don't think, did you see my thumbs up? You want to see him again? You want to see my thumbs up?
Oh,
look at all the bells and whistles, huh?
I like that.
I play around with stuff, but that's encouraging. That's worth this podcast. That one statement and that one story is worth the podcast. So who is your podcast for? Like, who is the ideal, who will benefit mostly from your podcast?
So it's interesting because, I created it for, it's called LoveBefore100 because it's a play on that. I have a list that has points. So I want to get to love before I hit 100 points or 100 years because I'm closer. Well, I'm not closer to 100 than 0, but no. I'm getting there. So I wanted kind of wrong. Yeah. Thank you. I will be, being wrong.
You're good to go.
So it was for women, single women in their 40s that are trying to date again so that they wouldn't get discouraged. But what I found is that because I try to weave in a lot of personal development, I mean, it's kind of like married people watch The Bachelor. Like It's
Right.
for people that love love. It's for people that love personal development, that love rom-coms, that appreciate comedy and personal
Right.
development. I've been really, as I shift away from coaching, I'm trying to kind of reclaim or create a new identity for myself. And it's kind of like, what do I do? I have a lot of guys on the dating app ask, like, what do you do? I'm like, I don't know. But that's not a good answer because it sounds bad.
But it's
But
honest.
yeah. But I'm like, I think I write inspirational comedy. I think that's
Mm,
what I do. My
mm.
hope, my big goal is to actually sell the podcast as a sitcom, make it into a show because
Ah.
I feel like stand-up comedy I loved because I could make people feel better in the moment. You leave a stand-up comedy show, you feel great for the night,
Mm-hmm.
but it doesn't change your life. It doesn't
Mm.
impact you to take action. And coaching always made me feel great because I could get people motivated and inspired. And I used comedy with
Mm.
my clients lovingly. We'd make
I
fun
like the
of
one, but by the
ourselves.
way, no, by the way, I like the one joke you tell about the drug. If you go out on a date with Rachel, there should be
Oh
like a
yeah,
warning label.
pharmaceutical drug commercial
For
side effects.
that was a great
Thank
joke.
you.
I looked at it like 5 times. I'm like, oh, go back and watch that again. Great joke. I'm not
Oh,
gonna make you
thank
tell it.
you.
I'm not gonna ask you to tell it right now, but it's a total great joke. But
Thank you.
yeah,
I
yeah.
appreciate that. So that's the thing. If I could marry comedy where people are laughing and they feel good,
Mm,
and it's almost like this, like, I don't know, there's no science behind this. I'm making this up, but I
mm,
feel like if you can elevate people's mood where they're like on this like dopamine high from laughing, and then you can slide in some personal development, you can get under the skeptic. And they're
mm.
like, yeah, you know what? Maybe I will try to get outside my comfort zone. Maybe I will, open my heart. Maybe I will try to be more positive and use one of these crazy affirmations this lady's always talking about. So, inspirational comedy. My podcast is for I have men that listen. I have a lot of men that I have met on dating apps that listen. I think that's why I'm still single, but it's fine. At least I have more downloads. That's not my. I know there's some people that go on to get followers. That's not my point. But if I'm not gonna get a boyfriend, at least give me some downloads.
Oh, what a strategy! Never heard of that before.
Yeah,
But
it's
hey,
new.
whatever works. So, well, that's funny. So, yeah, we've what would you say to someone who is now that you're journeying into coaching and and these various things and what you're doing with the podcast and sounds like a wonderful strategy. What would you say to someone who saying, you know what, I'm in that dating pool. It's hard for me. I'm going through that. Like what encouraging words can you give? Because the podcast here is about words for change. So what's the encouraging word or words would you give to that listener or viewer right now?
So in the book, The Four Agreements, one of the agreements is, don't take anything personally.
Mm,
And it's so easy to take things as a rejection. Oh my God, I took everything as a rejection. In the dating app world, you'll match people and they'll unmatch you. Like at like every stage in the game. It's like, and I'm kind of like, what?
yeah, like what?
I mean, it's so
You did
hard.
what to me? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So in that instance, I'd feel bad about myself. I'd feel a rejection. And now I just say, thank you, universe, for not wasting my time. Like, thank you, universe. It's funny because I recently this is the lawyer in me. I did experiment. I have the app where it'll tell you who's right swiped on you, meaning yes, I'm interested. And so I would let them accumulate. I accumulated a couple like 100 likes or whatever. And then I went through and I matched like between 10 and 20 at a time.
Mm.
And I actually got statistics. It was like, okay, 3 out of 10 are going to unmatch you before you even send them a message. That's 30% are going to reject you, right? And
Wow.
then after you send a message, 2 of 10 are gonna like, you're like, hey, how's your day going? And then they unmatch you. Like, oh, okay, sorry. I mean, could you imagine that happening in real life where you're
I
like,
know, right?
you know,
That's
like
crazy.
it actually happened to me. I was just in the UK and this man winked at me. I've never been winked at before. And I went over to him and he's like, what are you doing here? Because I was doing it for the podcast. And I was like, you just winked at me. Like, that was the weirdest interaction ever.
God, you are funny without being funny. I get the impression that you're not even trying to be funny right now, but I'm like, it's just laughing because it's funny. So
Thank
I'm
you.
sorry. Go ahead.
No, that's fine. Laugh at my pain. No, I'm just kidding. But so it's just interesting because when you take the rejection out of it, when you don't take it personally, you just go, this is that person's preference, or they're having a bad day, or they didn't like this, right? Don't take it personally, because then you can stay in the game, right? Just trust that the universe has your back. Everything's always working out for you. That person was probably a serial killer and they realized that you could take them, you know, like, thank God, you know, or there's some kind of pervert that likes certain things and you don't match that. That's fine, right? You don't want to
Oops.
match their
Right.
needs. So that's always fun for me. I'm like, oh, fine. I didn't like you anyway. You're probably a weirdo.
Right.
So just stay, and that's why with my podcast, I'm super vulnerable. I go like, this happened. This person like slept with me and then didn't want anything to do with me again. That was awful. But I hear from a lot of people that happens, and I thought, like, it happens to all of us, and you know, it doesn't define who we are. Like, you just keep getting back on the horse.
Right. Wow. Well, I tell you what, we've been going for a while, and I totally appreciate this conversation and laugh. And I just want to thank everyone who's watching live, and then those who are watching on demand. As I assume you'll make a comment, you definitely want to get in contact with Rachel. Check out her podcast. She's on all the major podcast platforms. Again, her podcast is called LoveBefore100 Podcast. I think you guys are going to really, really enjoy that. And it's going to be, as I like to say, a blessing in your life, right? And so, Rachel, I am super, super happy that you came through. And the story that you shared is going to reach and be a blessing to someone, as it already has been. And not only to me, but for the people watching and listening. And I am eternally grateful for that we've been able to share this space. Okay. And so I look forward to seeing further things from you guys. Make sure you check out Rachel on TikTok. She's on TikTok. She's on Instagram, pretty much the major podcast platforms and social media platforms. She's all over there. And man, I think she will be a blessing to you. And then check out her comedy as well, because it's funny. I think I love comedy. So it's one of my guilty pleasures. I'll tell you, that's the honest truth. So once again, Rachel, thank you so much for joining the Words for Change podcast. This has been, you just hang back right here, and I have a few change words for our audience, and then we'll come back. All right?
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Well, Words for Change, this has been a great moment. Once again, please make sure you follow up with Rachel. With the change moment that she shared with us is this: don't give up. Don't take it personal. Don't give up. Don't take it personal. As you go through your life change, as you go through the ups and downs of life, as you experience, as I like to say, the full experience of humanity, don't give up, right? There are people who are having similar experiences, and there are people who are willing to surround you and help you as you go through that experience. That's what this podcast is all about. That's why we bring guests in who can share their experience with you, who will help you as you go from where you are to where you want to be. I really appreciate you. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. And hey, I look forward to talking with y'all again in the very, very near future as we continue to bring you these wonderful, wonderful podcasts here on the Words for Change. God bless. Talk to you soon. All right, Rachel. So you can say bye to everybody.
Thank you so much for having me. What a great time I just had.
Yeah, it was great. It was great. God bless you. All the best, okay?
Thank you.
All right.